Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Lee Osler. I'm in the state of Washington in the U.S. I'm one of the regulars, and I'm also joined by Jim and Glenn in San Antonio,
Yeah.
who have a principal role here as co-hosts. We've invited Ed Wiens from the East Coast. We've got an East Coast, West Coast, and Mid Coast, I guess, representation. Ed's a veteran in SIA, and he's joined us tonight to help us deal with the likes of Richard Michael, who's also an East Coaster. Dr. Richard Michael, welcome to us. Welcome to SIA 5. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, so we're going to get started. We will note for those watching that this is a new time. We've advanced our schedule by an hour. And so hopefully those who might come in an hour will notice and make that correction. But anyway, Richard, thank you for joining with us tonight. You've been with us before. Tonight is you're in the spotlight. And so we would like you to, if you would for a moment, to introduce yourself. And as you do that, maybe you can give a brief story as to about what brought you, an esteemed physician, to ASEA and to the science of redox signaling molecules. So take it away.
All right. Well, Dr. Lee, thank you very much. Jim, and thank you. And gosh, what an honor to be on with my upline. Sir Ed, thank you. So let me give you a little background about myself for those that don't know. I am a physician, MD. I went to undergraduate school at University of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, majored in a BS in zoology, then traded one shade of blue for another, went to Duke Medical School. Don't ask who I root for in sports. That's for a later segment. I don't want to get anybody angry. We got to be politically correct. But at any rate, I went on to do family medicine residency in Virginia, and then came back and set up a faith-based practice in North Carolina, in my hometown right now, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and have now kind of transitioned to a concierge-based practice, high touch, high personalization, and really kind of a different form of medicine. Did preventive care in that previous practice, but a different level now, where actually I'm measuring inflammatory markers in people, lo and behold, and other markers, and have made that transition. But the story is very interesting. As Lee said, why is a traditionally based doc who wrote prescriptions very little in terms of supplements, alternative medicine? I was just a traditional, good, hardworking doc, working 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I would even have to go into the office before and after church on Sunday. So, very, very, very busy. I really I had no time to look at other things. And believe me, there were people trying to get me to look at supplements and other things, but I just had no time. It wasn't a smokescreen. I just literally had no time, had no life, to be quite honest. So it was pretty rough, but life happens to all of us. And this is 6 years ago. At that time, Gideon was 13, one of my grandsons. In that family, he is now one of 12 grandchildren. But at the time Gideon's 13, I get a call 2 days after Christmas, having just seen him. He was doing absolutely fine. Get a call from my daughter saying such and such and such and such is going on with Gideon. Honestly, within less than 2 minutes, I told her, you got to get him to the emergency room. You've got to go now. You cannot wait. Get him there immediately. And subsequently, he was transferred to my alma mater, Duke, spent 5 weeks there. You never want to be the star patient at a university medical center, but he was. And long story short, he ends up, they went out and tested the soil where they lived. They did all sorts of testing and kind of came up with the big goose egg.
Hey, Rich.
Yes.
What was happening to him? I mean, he was 13 years old. If I'm not mistaken, he was a superb athlete, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was a cross
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
runner. So
Long,
what was
long
going
distance.
on with him?
Yeah. Long distance runner. So basically what happened, um, probably a lot of people are familiar with people that have some form of say a stroke. It affects the brain. And because our brains are incredible organs, they are in charge of different parts of the body, different types of functionality. And depending upon what part of the brain is involved. Well, unfortunately for him, he had a kind of a massive involvement challenge. And so the manifestations that are easiest for people to understand is he would face plant. So as you said, he was a cross country runner. I had to assist him to get to the bathroom without falling on his face. He could not articulate. He could not. He didn't have verbal speech, although he could hear, but he could not articulate any way. And then he couldn't swallow. And here's a 13-year-old kid who's ending up leaving the hospital to go to rehab with a feeding tube and all these challenges. So that was devastating. And I mean, as hard as they tried, they really, other than go to rehab, try to work through this, see what can come about, there was no active treatment other than that. Okay. So the best minds, the brilliant folks.
And you're going in there and visiting with him, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? I mean, what was that like for you?
Yeah. I felt impotent. I really did. Because I'm a doctor. I should know how to help my grandson, right? And, anybody that's had a family member go through any kind of, medical challenge, your heart goes out there. But then I was in the precarious position of being a physician. And why couldn't I find out what was wrong and help him? So I've really felt badly, resigned to just feeling that way. And long story short, one person tells another person. Ed and Rebecca played a critical role, telling a woman named Paula, who's on the call. I saw her check in tonight. And she told somebody in a quilting class. And before you know it, my daughter gets a call from a high school, a fellow high schooler who she was reaching out to on social media. Pray for us. We don't know what to do. We're spending all of our life savings on this contraption, that contraption. Nothing's helping. This is a situation. Just pray for us. Really, just pray for us. And she says, well, my mom had a brain challenge. It's not what your son's having, but she's consuming this stuff, and it's unbelievably helping her. So that kind of got the things going. Ed and Rebecca eventually delivered this stuff to Anna and her family. And I found out later it sat in their pantry for a while, believe it or not.
Well, let me just interject in your story here because it fits the timeline. We live about an hour away from the daughter and the daughter's family, about an hour and a half away from Dr. Rich, and we began to hear about this family that had these bunch of kids, and their son was having this fantastic experience with the product. Just kind of hearing about it from second or third hand. And then word filtered to us that they were going through a lot of product, but they were out of product. And big family, didn't have a lot of extra money, and so Rebecca and I just said, well, where do they live? And we'll just take them some product. And so we got an address and put it in the GPS, and we head out kind of toward Raleigh from where we live. And so the address is, they live on our family road, our letter family road. And so we get off the highway and we're following the GPS, and we come to our family road, and it's basically a dirt road going back into the trees. Well, here in North Carolina, when you head back on dirt roads into the trees, you're not quite sure if you're going to run into somebody playing the banjo on the porch or just exactly what. Maybe somebody running a still. So we just head down the road and we come out to this beautiful little neat little home and pull up in the carport area, and this beautiful young lady comes out, just big smile on her face, and we introduce ourselves. Oh, hi, thank you. And we said, listen, we heard you need some more of this product. We wanted to bring it to you. And she was so sweet, so gracious, and thankful. And kids came out. All the kids were just clean and not what you could run into when you were going way down a dirt road here in North Carolina. And then she said something really amazing. She said, if I get a bunch of people together here, would you come talk to them about this product? And I wanted to say, well, do bears do what in the woods? Yeah, I'll do that. And so anyway, that kind of set up the scenario where I'll take it. You can take it from there, Dr. Rich.
Hey, real quick, do you remember how much they were drinking back then, Ed? Because you probably know better than Rich.
Nothing that was rationed out, I don't think. I mean, I think all the family was seeing, Gideon's one of the older kids, and I think the younger ones were probably seeing some of the benefit he was getting, and we're probably just, who knows, stopping by, taking a shot here and there, but they were going through the product. Yeah. But it wasn't being systematically measured out, I don't think.
Right.
But didn't some of the other kids have some issues as well, but not as bad as Gideon?
Correct.
Okay.
So they were having responses as well, but so we're going there to celebrate birthdays, and she said that Dad, Gideon's having this tremendous response, and I said, oh really? Wow, what's going on? Well, he's on this supplement stuff, and when you come up for the birthday, would you mind hearing about it? And at that point, what am I going to say? He's responding to something. I don't know what it is, but it's like, sure, let me hear it. So we have the birthday. Ed and Rebecca are there. Meet them. They brought a guy named Dick Walker on.
Yeah, I heard. By this time, I heard that her dad was a doctor, and so I just a Duke educated a Dookie. Educated doctor, which around here that is about as blue chip credentials as you could possibly get. Maybe across the country, but especially here in the East. When you say Duke, it's just like the medical holy land. And so I thought, oh boy, I'm way out of my league already with potentially a very skeptical doc from Duke who's going to be here when I get up to talk about these molecules. So I didn't even I don't ever try to pretend that I'm on their level whatsoever. So I reached out to my longtime friend, Dr. Dick Walker in Washington State. I said, hey, Dick, I said, are you available at this particular evening? I could pop you on a Zoom call because I may need you just to kind of give some credibility to the context of the conversation. So yeah, I brought him with me virtually.
Now, was that the first time you went to their house, Ed?
Well, that was the first time
meeting
after we delivered the product.
Okay. So
this is the birthday.
So he knew it was safe to go back the second time. So I'm sitting there listening. I found out. Gosh, Gideon's improving. Well, what is this? So I'm hearing.
Now, how long had it been, Rich? Real quick, I'm sorry to keep asking so many questions, but how long had it been that he was on the stuff?
4 or 5 weeks, but a month, a little over a month.
Okay.
But they did not do any super physiologic doses. I mean, they were doing 2 to 4 ounces a day. Okay. So now I'm hearing a buzzword. In medicine, if you hear buzzwords over and over again, you're thinking, okay, what is this? I heard the word redox. And I'm trying to pull it out. My biochemistry book in medical school had just a few pages devoted to redox. Honestly, we had attributed nothing of significance to it. Okay, and I'm wondering what is this? I mean, what is this? And there's a sofa there, and I play with the grandkids on the sofa, and it's a nice plush, comfy kind of thing. And I'm sinking as low into that thing as I'm just kind of going down in it because I was worried. Because when a doctor doesn't know, sometimes we're so proud that we just fake it. Like Ed said, people can fake it. Well, I wasn't going to fake it, but I sure didn't want to just let on that I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about, But that was the watershed, because hearing Dick and subsequently hearing Maureen, who's usually on this call, Dr. Hayes, it's solidified for me. But, again, very inquisitive. I want to find out. Bought hundreds of dollars of textbooks. Really felt like I was going back to biochemistry, medical school. Not a lot of fun, but my motivation this time was not to pass an exam. It was to find out what the heck is going on with my grandson. Because now, I need to find this out. So that's kind of where, it was before Dr. Osler had his great books, by the way, because people on this call need to know that's where you need to go. But at any rate, I found out that this is a real biochemistry. It is real. The advances in basic sciences had gone way past what I had time to look into. But it was like all of a sudden this whole branch opens up, and it's like, blinders off of the eyes, really. And it's like, holy cow. I mean, now, the great thing about this is one way they package this stuff. It says cell signaling supplement, dietary supplement. So I learned real quickly, this is not a pharmaceutical product in the sense, you don't prescribe this. You can take it, and, I can't say that it cures, diagnoses, prevents, or deals with diseases, but I say this. That's true. I can't say that, but look at all the things on the back that we can say. And I dare you say that to my daughter, because she had her family back. She had her family back. So
did that concern you, real quick, Rich? Did that concern you that it was just a dietary supplement, that it was not a drug, or did that? Because a lot of times, a lot of medical people will look at that and then they'll flip it around on the back and go, "Oh my gosh, this is just salt water."
Yeah. If you look at the ingredients, it's salt and water, but we're leaving out something very important. It's got redox molecules in it, stabilized outside the body. Now, how they're able to achieve that, I bloody don't know. Don't kill me. I don't know. You can't torture me. I don't know how they do it. So I'm putting that right out there. However, I'm a firm believer in exercise, proper diet. I'm old school. There's incredible things that does. This week, my little thing has been brain neuroplasticity. Just kind of fascinated with some patients I'm seeing recently with challenges. And of course, that was a challenge that my grandson had. Honestly, he had a major stress to his brain function. Okay, major stress. Little stresses are fantastic because they nudge our NRF2 pathway to kind of come on awake, buddy boy. Give me a little juice. Help me out. So little stresses are fine. Exercise is one example of it. How we eat, when we eat, how we do it. There's lots of different stresses we can put on the body that actually help these pathways wake up a little bit. But this stuff is ridiculous in that what it does. in that pathway. So to finalize my answer to your question, Jim, great question. It was a leap. It was because I had never seen anything in a supplement that had the manifestations and the capabilities to do so many things. Because if you look at the genetics pathway, the gene study, it affects, look, I printed it off just so I could show it. Because if people, all those different boxes are different pathways. And for those of people that are familiar with these products, pull that study, look at pathway 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pathway 4, we rightfully emphasize that. That's the RF2 pathway. But look at the other 3 with regard to what I'm talking about tonight, how we have to connect these dots. But how this can affect very, very important pathways that have to deal with brain functionality, being able to adapt to stresses. And again, my grandson was an example of that, but people can think of all sorts of those stresses and how this can help us. So yeah, it's like a Swiss Army knife, whereas when I prescribe a prescription, it's usually a one of. It's a one-to-one correspondence. Here is a medicine A for problem, X, Y, or Z. Okay. And, but this is the Swiss Army knife because it literally can affect multiple pathways.
Let me say this, though, a key factor in this whole discovery pathway here with Dr. Rich is that he did not view the MD that is on his badge as an MD. I'm constantly complimentary of the fact that Rich, with all of his education, all of his degrees, was not so arrogant to not humble himself and learn about something that he didn't hear from a prestigious conference someplace, didn't hear it from a seminar, didn't hear it at some real highly regarded publication, heard it from a network marketer standing in a living room where he first heard it. So he was humble enough to recognize, here's something I need to take a look at. Obviously, the results he'd already seen with his grandson were undeniable. But I find so many times people with education or even without education, they do, Will Rogers 100 years ago said some amazing things. I mean, he said wisdom, simple wisdom, like always drink upstream from the herd. Okay? It's a smart idea. Never squat with your spurs on, things like that. He said everybody's ignorant, just on different subjects. Think about it. There's no shame in being ignorant. There is shame. It's shameful to be ignorant and opinionated at the same time. And so many folks are like that. And it seems like the more degrees somebody has, the more education, they tend to be opinionated in their ignorance and even fail to acknowledge that they might be ignorant. Dr. Rich wasn't so proud. He wasn't so arrogant. So he humbled himself to learn. I've been to his office. I've seen the stack of Redox biochemistry textbooks that he bought. It's 1.5 foot high if you stack them flat.
Oh, wow.
And he's realized that that here's an area of science that he was ignorant of. He's not anymore. That's why he serves on the medical professional board. But I just want to compliment him for being open enough to learn, because of that, a lot of other people have been helped.
So, Rich, we were talking earlier, and I know I want Lee to pop in on this one as well, but when did it hit you that it was network marketing, and what was your response? What was your initial reaction? Because we were saying before, you've never had any experience with this before. Your daughter never had any experience with this before. So how did you deal with that?
Well, something was said that night at that birthday party. Okay. And the little bit that I knew is somehow it might benefit Anna. if I purchased some product.
Yeah.
And I wasn't certain how it worked, but I knew that they couldn't afford this stuff. He's a teacher, and she's a homeschool mom, and they don't make a lot of money. And I said, well, while I'm doing this, I'll take this stuff, see what it's like, investigate it, and whatever I use, it'll help them somehow. I wasn't sure of how that works, but so I bought the entrepreneur pack because I could afford it. I said, I'm going to look at all these products. I'm going to look at them, study them, and it'll help them from the get-go. But that was it. I mean, I didn't know much more, really. I couldn't, as long as it wasn't illegal, and it isn't. I had to respect how the founders decided that business model versus another business model. It wasn't mine to kind of pontificate over that. I just said, look, I'm going to use this. It's helped my grandson. Let me find out about it.
Thank God they did, or we wouldn't, any of us know about it. I was real quick. I was thinking about the child, when he was, ill, and then the parents went the Western medicine route, even before you learned of the redox. And so I was thinking about that child ill and all the things that the doctors tried to do to help him. I mean, here he was in Duke for weeks on end. So sometimes it's hard for people. They see somebody going through all that, following their doctor, and then they need to, brave sharing it. And so I'm wondering about other children or other people having the same kind of condition, could be going through aimless routes. We know of somebody in Kerrville who had some similar symptoms, spent 10 years. I think it was 250 supplements later before he learned about ASEA, and then ASEA, it was his answer to prayer. So maybe you can talk about that, how someone, they go through so much, and then they got to be open-minded to something that is not Western medicine, but doesn't have side effects. It's perfectly safe. So maybe, and that could pull into the network marketing, because really people need to be willing to get out there and share, because someone else could be in the exact same shoes as your grandchild and may never find out about it unless we tell what this is.
Right. Well, they were going through. So from the time he left Duke, went to 2 weeks of pediatric rehab, and then went home. And they were having to, rearrange the house physically, figure out, normally the kids are downstairs. Here's a kid who's, unstable walking, and, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put him? So they're really at a very basic activities of daily living. They're restructuring. They're having to rethink all of this. And during that interval, they're desperate. They know traditional medicine has no real answer at this point. And so they're I called it lotions, potions, and contraptions. I mean, they were frugal people. They saved, but they're obliterating their savings.
Yeah.
They're buying this, they're buying that. The internet says to do this, the internet says to do that. This person says this, that person says that. And they're going through it. And that's why they were, basically it was a plea of desperation, pray for us. Because we're going broke, we don't know what to do for our son. And that's when that connection was made. I just want to, I had researched something, and maybe the only person on this call that's going to appreciate this is Sir Ed. And he might know where I'm going with this. But the power of one person telling another person is so incredible. And now this story starts back in the 1800s.
Oh.
and a lot of these names, probably many people on this call may not know, and my worldview is maybe not your worldview, but hang with me. It's going to illustrate an important principle that I think we need to all understand. So this guy is I think he's a shoe salesman or something, and he's just like, hey, I'm gonna have a little Bible study. And he reaches out to teenagers, and there's this kid that is in his Bible study and his outreach, and the kid at age 18 has a miraculous conversion experience. He becomes a believer, Christian at age 18. Oh, by the way, the guy's name, by the way, is D.L. Moody.
Oh, well, of course.
But D.L. Moody has an influence on this continent and across the seas. And a guy named F.B. Meyer kind of comes under that guy and says, hey, this sounds like the real deal. And then another guy named Chapman does the same thing. And then a guy named Billy Sunday. So it's one person, they're hearing something. And then Billy Sunday, guy named Mordecai Ham, here's this guy, Billy Sunday, saying a message. And then there's a guy at the end of the story, the guy that listened to this guy, Mordecai Ham. Now, this guy at age 16, he has also an amazing experience. He says, I'm listening to this guy, Mordecai Ham, and that sounds like the real deal. I will sign up for that for life. Now, all along the way, did these people face challenges? Did they ever, in their outreach, did they ever feel rejected? Did they have success with everybody they talked to? Everybody that attended their little services or their classes or anything like that? I mean, did they have humiliation? I'll bet you there were some people that were laughed at them, said, that's a bunch of hocus pocus. Did they ever feel like maybe hanging it up? Did anybody accuse them of misleading them? Oh, you evil person. I will bet you every one of these guys face challenges. Oh, by the way, the last guy that at age 16 attended a meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's in my home state. And at age 16, this guy decides, you know what? I think this guy Mordecai Ham has something to his message. I think it sounds pretty good. Well, that guy was Billy Graham. And he goes on to minister to over 200 million people in over 185 countries around the world.
Right.
So, why I brought this up, honestly, was this: the power of one person influencing another. And these guys, I will bet you, they didn't single out, I'm going to go after that one person. They just said, I'm going to tell people about something I'm passionate about, something I believe in, something that I think could benefit other people. But I may be rejected, I may be laughed at, I may be humiliated. But I have a why, and that why is very powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what pursued these guys. And look at what happened. I mean, nobody knew there was going to be a Billy Graham in that chain. But how powerful is that? And so, yeah, we won't all be triple ambassadors and all that, but the fact that we can influence one person and that person influences somebody else, and we may never see that final, company talks about legacy. What
Right.
would you say there was legacy in that little story I just mentioned?
Absolutely.
It has a powerful legacy. So I would just encourage everybody, and I'll be quiet, but I would encourage everybody to, embrace this science. I mean, one of the things that's helped me is, if I'd come in at the very beginning of this company, we didn't have as much science. This is third party authenticated. There's redox molecules in here. Okay. Company lays its reputation on the line because these are randomly pulled. Laboratory documents that. So, I'm coming in after a lot of this stuff has been shown. I'm coming in. Anybody on this call, you can use Google Scholar, not Google Scholar or PubMed. Put in there redox biochemistry and whatever you're interested in a health way, in anything like that, and look at the thousands of articles. So I'm coming in at a really sweet time, and the company is developing other products as well that are absolutely dynamite. But it takes, because of this business model, and I'll let you guys take it over from here, but because of the business model, it does take one person telling another person, and that is powerful. We've seen it in what I brought up, but it's powerful because that's what has helped my grandson, and I'm forever grateful. I always get choked up about it because, if Ed and Rebecca hadn't, Paula was not gonna, she didn't want any part of this, but they were politely persistent, and one thing led to another. And if somebody along the way had said, that person's too tough to talk to, or they probably won't be interested, or they might reject me, or then where would my grandson be? So
Exactly.
I just encourage everybody on the call to think about that.
I want to bring something up with Lee. I was talking to a gentleman today. His name's Patrick. He said he was going to be on the call tonight, and he had past military experience, and he was in the medical field. And he goes, "This is really peculiar because I've been around for quite a while, and I've never heard of this. I've never seen this." And he asked why. Lee, what would you say to that? Why did this go the route that it did? And why doesn't everybody in the medical world know what we have? If it does what Dr. Michael and what it did, it saved my life. And Ed, I know you can say with you and Rebecca that it's the lives that you guys have affected, and the same thing with you, Lee. But how do you answer someone that in the medical field is going, yeah, but why haven't I heard about it?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And it's new, but not new. It's a new category. And drug companies aren't talking about it. And quite frankly, they don't want us talking about it. Because this is, Rich talked about the one-to-one thing of a pharmaceutical drug. This is a one-to-many. It's a pleiotropic application where the bottom line is that we all know we have an inner healer in us. And I'm going to put that in quote. We have the capacity to heal. We all know that. Even wonderful people like Richard Michael and his doctoring, he's like crossing his fingers when people leave his office, hoping that their native capacity to heal will kick in somehow so that what he prescribes or tells them to do will actually work. And it doesn't always work for a variety of reasons. But, he told a great story of one person telling another person, right? Well, one of the things that's unique about what we have is that what we have is substantive. What we have plays on the pathways of this inner healer. If you could ask the magic question about life, you'd say, what is it that turns on? What turns on my native capacity to heal? What turns on my native capacity to deal? If you are in a room and this ambient environment in your room becomes too hot or too cold, what is it that communicates with the machine on the other side of the wall or in the garage or in the attic? What tells that machine to fix the problem? How does it know that it's supposed to respond, right? Well, that's a good analogy. We call it a thermostat. There's a relay in the thermostat that senses when the ambient environment in the room is out of balance, when it's stressful, when it's too hot, too cold, whatever. And there's a process, a mechanism, a device that kicks in to respond to that, that corrects it, and then it turns off after it's corrected it. That is a stress response or a stress adaptation mechanism. And that's what we're hardwired with. We're as old as dirt. This has been the way we were designed. And so we haven't heard about this because it's not a drug. You don't use drugs to activate these pathways. You use lifestyle factors. You use behavioral factors. That's why exercise and diet and keto this and keto that and stress reduction and good sleep and detox, all of these they turn on these pathways. And so what we have here with ASEA is electrolyzed saline molecules that signal, that communicate. They play the role of that thermostat that turn on and turn off very important switches in the cell that signal or communicate to our DNA that it needs to do something in response to whatever the stress is. It could be whatever sickness you want to envision, ill health, aging, whatever the toxicity, whatever it is. Something has to tell or communicate to the DNA what it is it needs to do. The code's already there. We're activating the pathway genes that tell the cell what to do in response to whatever the stress is that we encounter. And when we exercise or practice that capability, when we do it on purpose, even we mimic it, it's almost a pseudo stress. When we do that, we're building resilience, we're building fitness, we're building the ability to respond more quickly. Think of the fire department. They're not sitting flat on their feet, unresponsive, and it doesn't take them a half an hour after they get the call to figure out what they're supposed to do. They know right away because they practice it. They're fit. And those are all great metaphors to this new category in health that we have that is not a drug, it's not a pharmaceutical, it's not a cure. We're not diagnosing. We're exercising cellular resilience. And as we do that, we get better and better able to be able to deal with the ambient or the environmental conditions that aren't working so well. What Richard Michael and myself have done for 40 years in our practices is we provide a response to the symptoms. You don't like how your head hurts or your leg hurts or the fact that that a certain system isn't working well and it produces something that's uncomfortable or it takes you out of balance. Well, we can give you a drug to stop that. That's an intervention. You're not preventing anything, you're intervening after something's already gone wrong. So getting up ahead of us is what this is about.
Awesome. And Lee's having some computer issues or internet issues. So thank God you got through that, Lee. How is Gideon doing today? How are the other grandkids doing today?
Doing great. This has probably been maybe 2 months ago now. He actually was in a long distance race in the Raleigh area, so a big catchment. And he's old enough now that he unfortunately has just morphed into the open men's competition.
Oh.
So, but I think he was in the top 5 runners.
Wow.
Against when you're long distance running, age is really good up until a certain point, and
Sure.
So for him to be like in the top 5 in that competition was awesome. So
Yeah.
Cognitively, he and I share books. Pops, here's a book I've just finished. You might be interested in it. Whereas
How much does he take? How much did he take today of Redox? Is he in a maintenance or?
no, yeah, he's at least 8
Okay.
ounces.
And what about gel? Does he use that a lot being an athlete?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, Rich, if you don't mind me asking, because of what you've seen, and Lee, if you want to pipe in as well, how have you been received? Have you shared this with your peers? Do you share it in your practice? What's been your methodology of sharing this with others, or do you do it outside the office?
Well, when I'm sharing it with patients as clients, it's usually in response to some kind of perceived area that I feel like they could benefit. Now, obviously, if they're older, because we reduce our native production of these by an average of 10% per decade after, roughly age 10, just by aging alone, your chronological age, I mean, you can benefit from this because, we need that. I mean, I've got a population of patients who want to be healthy, who generally want to do the right thing, but none of us who exercises perfectly all the time, who eats the perfect diet. Very few, even in motivated people. And in our culture, to the food sources are totally different. The way things are grown, totally different. So you can do your very best with what you've got and your knowledge, but we still are going to be lacking. So the answer is, to be on the safe side, you could just recommend this to everybody. But I do measure inflammation markers. I measure other things. And it's absolutely amazing. Again, because of how we know this works on especially the NRF2 pathway and can really help with chronic inflammation. It's amazing to find the numbers. I have one patient that I've forgotten he was on it. And there was an interval, 3-month follow-up. And because chronic inflammation is associated with so many bad things, okay? So believe it or not, and Dr. Osler is more the expert on this, even the inflammation in our oral cavity, this is like first line of defense. And, I say, gosh, if you find it hard working out for 30 to 45 minutes at, level 2 of cardio performance, why don't you take a 2 or 3 minute exercise for your gums? Just exercise your gums for 2 or 3 minutes. How's that? If you don't have 30 or 45, try 2 to 3 minutes. And here's some things you can do to exercise your gums, because chronic inflammation is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular events, i.e., myocardial infarction, i.e., heart attacks, strokes. Bad things happen. So when our arteries become inflamed, plaque that's been sitting there gets unstable. And when it gets unstable, bad things happen. Okay. So again, getting back to things that doctors normally, in the run-of-the-mill rapid fire pace, we're just not trained to look at that stuff. I've looked at more gums now, and I can usually tell. I'm almost, probably about 90% accurate. I can tell who's flossing just by looking. Whereas before, it's something that doctors, we go past the teeth and gums to get back, way back there, to look at things in the back, or maybe the tongue, So, all this is kind of amazing stuff. But anyway, getting back to this guy, I'd forgotten, honestly, that I recommended Redox to this guy. He came back, his inflammation numbers were great. And I was trying, there are so many things that can affect chronic inflammation, so many things. Yeah. And, I was running through a few things. I said, well, tell me, what are you really doing that's, different from your last visit? And he looks at me, he says, well, Doc, I'm drinking that stuff. I said, whoops. Oh, okay. Thank you. So, it is fun seeing that. It's fun seeing changes in kidney numbers and all that kind of good stuff. But I do make patients aware. I have them sign a signed disclosure statement that I'm involved with the Medical Professionals Board. Here's this company. I don't really care whether you use it or not. I mean, I do care, here. But if you decide not to use this, I'm still taking care of you, you know. So that's how I approach it. Colleagues, you know, everybody on this call needs to understand. Dr. Osler was really getting to this. You know, it probably depends on when you finished your training. If you were trained and know the ramifications of redox biochemistry, you may be surprised that somebody stabilized these things. You may be surprised, hey, I didn't know about that. Because again, how is the SIA making itself known? 1 to 1 to 1. We're not blasting that out on media everywhere. You know, it's not out there. So that's why it's so important for all of us to try to do our very best. But Lee, go ahead and help to answer that one.
Well, the reason why this is a new conversation is what you just said. This is the first time they've ever been stabilized. We've electrolyzed, you know, liquid solutions, especially water and saline, for the better part of 200 years. That technology isn't really new, although it's very refined today. The great advancement is its stabilization, and when you stabilize it, you now have a shelf life. That's what gave birth to this company, was the ability to stabilize these energetic molecules that have this ability to communicate by moving electrons from one protein to the next protein. The ability to do that in a stable way that communicates to the end of the pathway to tell the DNA what it needs to do. That is cellular signaling, cell communication. That's brand new. And now that we've discovered it, the rising tide raises all boats. You can bet your bottom dollar that the pharmaceutical industry is looking for drugs that do this. In fact, that's what they're doing. And it will all be in the anti-aging arena over the next 2 decades. So we can actually boastfully brag, you know, that we were the first, and we will be the only one for a very, very long time, in my opinion, that can address this whole issue of anti-aging and anti-inflammation, or not inflammation, in the way we do it. Earlier, you talked about inflammation. That's kind of the unsung hero in our community, but it's well talked about in the medical community. Everything in the medical community is about inflammation. Well, but unfortunately, most of that attention is anti-inflammation. It's after it's already occurred. We're trying to put out the fire after it's occurring, which is fine. That's intervention. And if I have it, I'd sure like it to be gone, you know, because it's dangerous. But we have the ability to just not have inflammation. We can stop it before it begins, if that makes sense, almost in quote marks there, because we're upstream to it. We can crosstalk to it. When you activate the NRF2 glutathione pathway, you're also crosstalking to diminish what's called the NFKB, or the nuclear factor kappa beta inflammatory pathway. Inflammation is big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we can like nip it in the bud before it ever starts. That's huge.
Exactly.
Ed, would you pick in and get your thoughts?
You know, I'm listening to this, Ed, and all of us, and everybody out there, that I just keep going, this is real. Play along that it's real. But Ed, are you kind of surprised that it hasn't just taken off like a rocket, that people are still so doubtful? Everyone is so doubting Thomas's that they just have a hard time believing. Did you think when you started, when you and Rebecca joined, did you think this was going to go different, quicker, that it was going to be, you know, a household name in 5 years?
Well, when I first heard about this, you know, my story is I got a call about this back in 2009. And just because of my history in this industry, I knew that statistically, most new companies don't make it. Most new companies in the direct sales network marketing world, which is vast, way bigger than most people realize it is. There are hundreds of startups every year. Most never see their second birthday. And I just knew that was the case. I'd never heard of this company. I was in that industry. Admittedly, I'd come through a pretty a little bit of a disengaged season of my life. My first wife had become sick and then ultimately passed away after a 4-year struggle. So I had been on the sidelines somewhat for a while, but I knew I'd been around the industry since the 70s. So I've kind of known the growth and the evolution of the industry. And I just knew that new companies typically don't make it. So here was a new company with a product I certainly didn't understand, never heard of. Some good people, good friends of mine that had called me, but I just stood back and I was kind of in the shadows for probably close to 5 years, just watching this company from a distance, trying other things. I didn't want to do a product company again. There's so many things you can do in the network marketing space. There's all kinds of things you can do. I mean, that's an ever evolving world. And so I didn't really want to do products again. And it wasn't until some circumstances changed in my life that caused me to, okay, let me go check this out. So when I got to the CA headquarters, in fact, this month, it'll be the 30th of September, was when I first sat down at the CA headquarters at the conference table. I listened to Vertus Norton personally share his background and share his vision and share the story. I heard the whole Genesis story from him on September the 30th. It will be, it was 2010 till, so it'll be what? It'll be, what's the math? 14 years?
14 years.
Yeah. And no, it was 2014 that I sat down, so it'll be 10 years. It'll be 10 years coming up on the 30th. And I realized as I sat there, I thought, I have blown it. I mean, I have been negligent. Here is a tremendous opportunity. This is an amazing technology. This company is run by smart people. They know how to run a company. They know how to grow this. They know how to expand this internationally. I knew network marketing was strong. And I remember sitting at the kind of a little bit of an interval that we had. My friend Bart Cotter was with me. He'd flown over from Australia to look at this with me. And we're talking, just the three of us talking to Vertus. And he said, fellas, and when he speaks, it's like the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, I listen. And he says, fellas, I'm telling you. He says, when the world really ever figures out what we have here, this is another Apple computer. I believed him. I believed him. I still believe him. Why it's taken as long as it has, I don't know. Has it taken long? I mean, what's the big buildings take a long time to dig foundations. Yeah. You can throw a shack up, lean to it. I mean, if you're going to build something that'll last for a long time, you're gonna dig deep and you're gonna lay a foundation that may take a while. So I don't think in the grand scheme of things it's taken all that long. We're in 35 countries. You know, the company has a goal of achieving worldwide distribution. We have a long ways to go, but we've come a long ways. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the long-term approach to this. The downfall of a lot of companies in this industry is to try to grow too fast. Mm-hmm. I remember talking with a fellow from Japan, our previous company, and he was describing some of the virtues of that company. He said, many companies grow like this, and then they fall like this. They grow like this. He said, our company grow like this. We just grow steady. And there's wisdom to that. There's wisdom to that. Some companies try to reach out internationally. Too big, too far, too quick. Yeah. It's like international expansion is kind of like a crane. A crane, if it's going to have a long reach, it's got to be really grounded back here to hold it down. Otherwise, it can topple. I've seen companies topple because they try to grow too fast. So I'm not at all. I mean, yes, as entrepreneurs, we may get impatient with some of the things that the company does, but they're methodical, they're systematic, they're strategic. They're here for the long haul. Our executives come from companies that are 100+ years old. So thankfully, they're not making the same kinds of mistakes that some companies in this industry make, and that's trying to get too big too fast. So I appreciate the trajectory that we're on.
And with only 16 products, every product is centered around cellular health. I mean, they don't just, we're just going to come up with another one. I mean, they really think on how they source it, how they add one more thing. So I'm always excited when there's something new because I know it's going to be
think about effective. It. People sometimes trip over the way that it's marketed, but every company has to figure out how are we going to make the public aware of what we have? how we're gonna create demand and just make our product known. I mean, there's multiple ways to do that. I mean, I've seen companies hire an airplane with a big flag behind it to fly the flag up and down across the beach or wherever. That's one of the ways they're choosing to make their company known in the marketplace. You could have companies, pharmaceutical world has products that are effective, but they're deadly. And so they're going to spend a ton of money to create fantastic videos, hire talent, buy expensive airtime, and make a product with all these side effects that have to be spoken so quickly, or the print so small you can hardly read it. Dangerous things, but they're going to polish it and make it look so good. That's the way they're going to make their deadly product known in the marketplace. So every company's got to figure out how to do that. And there's nothing ever in the history of business that's more powerful, more effective, more credible than word of mouth. I mean, up until the 1800s, there wasn't any other way to do business. And the chocolate wars of the 1800s, that's an interesting study. That kind of birthed the whole idea of advertising and marketing as we know it. But word of mouth is king. Reviews rule the marketplace today. So when you entrust your product to a word of mouth delivery system, you better believe in your product, because word of mouth has the power to shut you down or to build you up, to either put you out of business or expand your footprint. And because this product delivers, it's been entrusted into a marketing methodology that obviously incorporates something for entrepreneurs. And that's an added benefit. It's an added benefit. So don't question the business model. If you have any questions about that, just school yourself. Go to school a little bit. I think that was interesting. I tried a new answer to the "what do you do" question. We had a chance to attend a football game the other day and sit in the chancellor's box at a university just about 30 minutes from here. And so just kind of chit chat with them. But one guy said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm an educator, because this is on an educational campus. I educate people about the history, the evolution, the growth, and the far reach of the direct sales network marketing business model.
Wow.
And he got, really? I said, and I never thought of that before, just till that moment. I thought that's kind of what I do. And but when you really, if you're running into people who have questions about network marketing, or if you do, just school yourself. Get up to speed on where this industry has started, how it's become what it is today, and understand where it's going. There's a reason why Warren Buffett owns a network marketing company. He's a smart businessman. So it's there's no other business model this could be entrusted to and have the success that we've had.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you match that with what we have. And Rich, real quick, and maybe Lee, I know we're going a little bit over, but are you still shocked? Because both of you guys are on the medical advisory board, professional board, whatever it's called. Are you still shocked what we have our hands on? Does it still overwhelm you what we have and what it does? Rich?
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, it's just the plethora of different pathways that we know, and we haven't exhausted those. We haven't. And again, it's such a powerful tool that wisely is a supplement that wisely everybody on this call, you don't have to have any kind of prescribing credentials. You just have to have a heart, learn about the product, learn about just some of the basics. You learn some tools that you can educate people. Bring somebody on board. I mean, Ed, and they brought Dick Walker because that's what was needed for me to feel comfortable. Okay. But, just tell the story and then pray and go on, not everybody is going to adhere and want to do it. But you just keep telling that story from a heart of love, compassion, knowledge, and you bring into play people on your team. And that's one of the things in terms of this business model that I think is fascinating. I think it's fantastic that you're collaborating with other people who can help you. Not everybody can be a major league pitcher, but the pitcher can't hit worth a stink, so he needs other players to score the runs for him, but I'll throw the ball past the other team. Everybody is, you bring into play what you need. And I think it's, I think that part's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a once in a lifetime. What about you, Lee? You've written multiple books. You've got more books coming out on other topics, but are you still shocked that we have this, that God, in essence, allowed it to be stabilized 16, 17 years ago, and then it's available through this model? Are you still shocked at what this is? The deeper it's dug into with all these universities all over the world doing their studies. Does it still shock you and wow you what we have?
Well, I'm going to be the outlier here and say, no, I'm not shocked. I'm highly impressed. And what I'm impressed about is these molecules that we have are what we also make and use in our body. What we have works in the body because this is the way the body works. That's what's important about this. We're not intervening. We are complementing. This is the way the body was designed to work. And we have something that aligns with that. And that's why this is unique, because there isn't anything out there outside of lifestyle that will do this. And this does it more directly. Everything in lifestyle, everything in nutrition, everything in herbs works indirectly. It works on these same pathways, but they work indirectly. They have to be first metabolized or processed or gone through 2 or 3 conversions in the pathways for them to have even a small effect. And what we have is a universal and a direct effect upon all redox sensitive cellular switches. That's why it's universal throughout the body, because that's the way the body works. So I'm not shocked anymore. At first I was, because it was jaw-dropping to see what happened with my wife. That's what got my attention and why I kept drilling into the science. I had to know upon what principles this was working. And, so that's why we say this is a new category, because it defies all the conventional ways of explaining how people get better. So I'm highly impressed.
Well, this was amazing. Tying that in with what Dr. Ed, he's our doctor of network marketing, had to say. That was phenomenal. Guys, I want to thank you. Ed, thanks for hopping on. Rich, you're phenomenal. Look forward to meeting Gideon one day. And even with your daughter, Anna, that would be an honor. And obviously, Dr. Osler, thank you so much. And through this call, Brother Ed was able to line up his amazing wife, Rebecca, and we will be having a nurses' night next Friday. You don't want to miss that. So we will have multiple nurses, but she will be the head of the crew. We will help her with a few other. But guys, my dad was a doctor. Rich, I know you would say that your nursing staff is really, really important. That without them, you could not do what you do. Same thing for you, Lee. And again, with my father, with him being an oral surgeon, his nursing staff he couldn't function without them. So without the nurses, doctors can't do what they do, frankly. Right. So with that, guys, thank you. This recording will be up at the redoxmatters.com in a matter of an hour or so. We did go a little bit long, apologize, but I think you guys enjoyed it. After that, all of us will be at our conference. So we will not be doing the Redox 5 when we have the conference the week after next Friday. And then we'll be back after that. We got some great lineups coming up after that. So guys, thank you so much. God bless. Get back to the one that got you on the call. Please do not go to Amazon. Get back. We're educators. We're going to educate people on what this is. Plug in, come back, get people on this call. Thank you guys so much. God bless. We love you. Rich, thank you, sir. I love your hair. Ed, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Go UT. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.